So what's the truth about bird flu? Well, there are many opinions about this, but let's look at the facts. Firstly, there is nothing new about a virus which learns how to jump from one species to another. And there's nothing new about major mutations in basic flu viruses or things like that. In fact, we see these kinds of things in human history going back many hundreds of years. And most recently, in 1918-19, we saw a catastrophic spread of a new mutant strain of human virus which became known as Spanish flu. This spread in the age of the steam train, the horse-drawn cart and the donkey. Nevertheless, it spread very fast. And within 18 months, every country, every community, every village just about had seen this virus come through it. We think that around 300 million people were infected, of which around 10% died. That's about 30 or 35 million people of differing ages, backgrounds, nationalities, slain by a virus for which there was no treatment. You see, we are very vulnerable as human beings against viruses. While when we are exposed, we develop immunity which can last us quite a while. Viruses tend to change their shape, and that's exactly what happens with flu. Polio always remains the same, and therefore once you've developed immunity for polio, it's likely to last you for the rest of your life. But common cold changes its shape every few weeks, and flu about once a year, which is why you have to have a new flu vaccine. And if you have a major mutation, the fact is that we will be totally unprepared, because the virus itself has yet to be invented by nature. We're not talking about bird flu passing through human communities. We would be talking about bird flu infecting a human being, perhaps combining with ordinary flu inside the same cell, and coming out with some of the infectivity of ordinary flu and some of the dangerous toxicity and mortality rates of bird flu, which at the moment kills 50% of all human beings that get it. Now, that's a truly awesome possibility, but what would it actually mean? The World Health Organization believes that the risk of some such major mutant change in human flu is about 100%. Not 10%, 100%. It might not be bird flu that it happens with, it might be something else, but it's coming. And that's because of our experience with things like SARS, which is just another mutant from an animal into a human. HIV, likewise, which has turned out to be an uncontrollable virus that's now endemic in every country. And for which there is no vaccine and no cure, despite billions of dollars being spent. So they think that we are likely to see further significant mutations in viruses like flu that would pose a threat to the future of humankind. But how serious would that threat actually be? Well, ordinary flu in the UK alone kills around 12,000 people every year. In the United States, around 50,000. So even if this new bird flu type mutation was to start killing a lot of people, it would have to kill more than 200,000 in America, more than 50,000 in the UK, to be classed as anything more than just a more severe variant of the kind of things we usually see. But could we see a lot more? Could it turn out to be much worse? For sure it could. And that is the big risk. And that is why in the UK, the government has ordered the hospitals, the mortuaries and the rest to prepare for up to 800,000 deaths over quite a short period of time. In the United States, they have similar preparations for over 1 to 2 million people. The trouble is, you would not need very many deaths to paralyze much of the health service and infrastructure of any country. If we look at what happened with SARS, we saw just 862 deaths out of 8,600 cases. And yet it was enough to produce quite significant disruption of the local economies, the wiping out of tourist trade, the disruption of business travel, the change of working habits, the closure of many shops and so on, because people just stopped traveling and they stopped spending. 860 deaths. How many did I say there might be from bird flu? Well, the best case scenario would probably be around 50,000 deaths in the UK alone. So what does it mean? What it means is this: if we do start seeing deaths from bird flu, if we do start seeing a higher death toll than we expect in the early stages, which is quite likely, most of these viruses tend to get less dangerous with time rather than more. If we do see doctors and nurses starting to die in hospitals, if we do see rings of steel and barbed wire, quite literally, put around some of these hospitals where there are cases to stop people from leaving, to strictly quarantine and isolate doctors, nurses, cleaners, health visitors, and of course the patients and their families who are visiting at the time, if we do isolate in this kind of way, then we will find that there's quite a big emotional reaction, a feeling of unease. In many of the audiences I have polled over the last 2 years on this issue, I have seen around half of the audiences put up their hands to say that in the very early stages of a bird flu type epidemic, they would probably stay home. These are senior managers. If that's the case for them, it will be the case for their factory workers. It will be the case for the people who are supposed to be restarting systems that crash, which keep our mobile phone systems running. It'll be so for those working in power stations. It'll be so for the lorry drivers delivering food to the supermarkets. And as I say, it will be so from right across society. It will be so for the caretakers who are supposed to turn up to the school to unlock the school gates. And anyway, why would they bother? Because they will think, probably quite rightly, that at least half the people watching this video would stay home anyway with their kids in the early stages, just to be on the safe side, until it's clear what we're dealing with. So expect significant disruption as a result of an emotional reaction to a spreading virus which may well turn out to be not much worse than an ordinary flu. In fact, that's the most likely scenario. But as I say, you should be prepared for quite significant disruption, for quite significant changes in how society operates, whether it's in your business, in government, or in any other sector.